Hello and welcome to our first ever official integrated live stream. We did do a pilot of these back in the fall, and if you want to catch those, Mr. Steve Armstrong will be posting those on this website here in the next day or so you can check those out. But this is really the first launch of our official integrated live streams, and today we're going to be talking about Google Forms. My name is Matt Brandenberger, and I am the District Technology Coordinator for the Snyder family.
My name is Shannon Quigley, and I'm the District Technology Coordinator for the North Side Family of Schools. And like Matt mentioned, behind us you can see our logo. This is kind of the logo we've adopted for our tech team, integrated. And really the reason we've focused on that word integrated is that we're trying to show you some resources of how you can use technology and really integrate it within the curriculum that you're using in your classroom. So that's kind of our goal and our logo, to really send that message to you. So that's the purpose of these live streams. If you weren't part of the pilot in the fall, I'm just kind of give you a feel for what these are like. These are not meant to be a step-by-step guide of how to use the product or the tool that we're featuring. It's really to give you a short intro into what that product is capable of. So if you are interested in using in this classroom, hopefully you'll walk away after this short half hour with some ideas like, hey, I want to try that. I want to learn more.
And if you feel like we came at you too fast, encourage you to use the pause button. Pause it, watch it later, try something on your own. If you're watching this later, that's a great way to be able to step through it a little bit more at your own pace. But we're going to move through it pretty quickly.
Right. So one of the things, this is our first round. In the fall we use Zoom for these meetings, but since we're opening up, we're using YouTube Live. So Steve, I'm going to show my computer for a second. If you have a YouTube channel, this is going to be easy for you to comment and chat on the side if you have a question while we're talking. If you have never been on YouTube with your account before, you're going to have to create a channel in order to do that. So I'm just going to take a quick second to show you that. So this is one of my personal accounts because my other accounts have a channel. So when I went to YouTube, so I logged into YouTube, over here in the right hand corner where my picture is, I'm going to click on my picture, and the first tab says create a channel. So if you create a channel, I'm just going to click get started, use my name because I'm probably not going to post a lot of content on this. Save. I'm just going to, oh no, now I'm going to do a lot of steps.
Well,
Matt warned me of this.
Yeah, that's all right.
Help. I'm going to type something in there. And now my channel is set up. So now I should be able to go ahead and chat if I need to. So if you just type something quick in that box and scroll to the bottom. If you're not worried about chatting, don't do that step right now. But we had some questions after our last session about how to chat. So
a quick plug for our last session. It was on Google certification, and you'll find that on our channel as well. So if you're interested in learning more about Google certification, please check that out.
Right. Okay, so today let's go ahead and get started.
Yep.
If you want to kind of tell what we're going to cover today.
Okay, yeah, so we're going to be covering Google Forms, like I said. And Google Forms is a great tool that you can use in your classroom. And when we typically think about it, we kind of think of it for maybe a survey or assessments, but we want to go kind of beyond that. We'll kind of cover the basics. So if you've never used Google Forms before, you can still kind of check it out and see what it's all about. But even if you have, we want to maybe show you some tools that are hidden, or some things that maybe you haven't thought of before that you'd really be able to use even in your classroom tomorrow. So
great. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I am going to start, like Matt said, on my computer. I'm just going to show you a little bit about the basics of Google Forms as we get started. So how do you even access Google Forms, and what does it look like? So here's an example of a Google form I used when I was a building coach. So this is just about next steps for a literacy block. So I have a form up here that I just asked the teachers in my building to fill out about their name, their grade level. They could give some short answer responses, and then I have a multiple selection question, so they could just select all that were applicable, multiple choice. So really this is what you would think of when you think of a form as a basic assessment or survey feature. So that's what it looks like on the user's end. But how do you create that for your classroom? So in this tab over here, I'm just going to go ahead and you can Google Forms, or you can
Google Forms.
Yeah, Google's become a verb. You can just Google it, search
like
it, or you can just on the top you can just type in Google.Forms, and then it's going to come up where I can click on Google Forms. Every Google form you create is stored in your Google Drive, just like any other Google document that you create. So when I click on Forms, all of the forms that I have created in the past are down below, and then up here is where I can create a new form. Google provides some templates for you if you don't want to just start from scratch, that we'll talk a little bit more about later. But for today's purposes, I'm just going to choose a blank form and get started. So I can immediately, when I click on here up in the title, I can just put integrated as my title here. And then one cool thing about this is I like to title my forms right away. That way if I get, my PC just crashed, so we're going to...
Oh my...
Okay.
That's poor timing.
Just a minute, we're going to switch to Matt's computer. You want to open up a new...
Absolutely. I'll drive,
window?
you talk. So we've got
Okay.
forms.
Yep, he's going to go up here in forms, and up in the top, just go ahead and title that form with
Practice?
integrated.
Okay,
Yep.
integrated. Okay.
Okay, and then so when you click on right next to it, it's going to rename that for us right away. So what's nice about forms is it's really easy to add multiple questions. So over up on the right hand next to the questions, you can see that plus sign. When Matt clicks on that plus sign, it is going to give him a blank question. It defaults to multiple choice, but when he clicks on the little drop down box, he's going to see all the different question types. Now, one of the reasons we like using Google Forms is that it gives you a lot of question types that mirror what students see on state assessments or IO assessments or other assessment tools that we use. So for those everyday uses in the classroom, this is a great way to model for kids what they're going to be answering. Not that we think testing is the be-all end-all, but why not give them those experiences if we can? So we've got multiple choice, multiple check boxes like we saw, drop-down list, and then we got some other tools that we're going to show you a little bit later. The other thing about Google Forms we like is when you're creating a question, there's some tools below. Like you can add an image. So if you have a diagram or a map or something that you want students to see when they're answering the question, you can upload an image along with your question. You can also put a short video clip in. So it could be you in a video that you created yourself, or it could be a YouTube video that you found online. So once you've got your assessment kind of created by using those different various question types, once students, are you ready for students to see them? Can you click on that send button for me up at the top, Matt?
Yeah.
What the tool that you're going to use is this link, and then once you go to that link and you copy it, you're going to be able to take that link and post it wherever you post links for students to access. So you could shorten it and make it a QR code for our younger learners. You could post it on your LMS page for students who are used to going that in your class. And what I love is it also has next to it an embed code. So if you have your PowerSchool class set up, you could click this embed code and put that in a content block on the LMS, and now your students can complete the form without having to leave your LMS page. So there's no secondary site for them. And then once they've completed it, just quickly show where they can get the responses. As soon as students complete in real time, you can click on the response tab and the student responses will be populated there. You can click individually through their responses. There will be a summary page, and then ultimately if you're a person that loves spreadsheets, you can click on the green link and it will open up a Google Sheet for you.
Yep.
So that was the little technical difficulty, but rundown. So now Matt's going to go on to a little bit further of how you can use that
Absolutely.
basic form.
And Shannon's going to try to recover her computer from
Yes.
the blue screen of death. So while she does that, I want to talk to you about the quiz feature in Google Forms. When Google Forms first came out, there was actually an extension or what's called an add-on that a lot of people use called Flubaroo. And we could do a whole nother session on Flubaroo, but in all honesty, other than some extra bells and whistles that it has, Google kind of wised up to the fact that so many people were using that add-on. They said, well, let's just put our own quiz feature in Forms, in the native Forms. So this is really a nice way to be able to build an assessment or quiz or whatever it might be right into your Google Forms. So the way you do this is if you go into settings. So I have right here a 4th grade example that one of the standards is adding and subtracting fractions. So in 4th grade, this is just would be like a quick exit ticket or a way just to do a quick look at how your students are doing. And if I go up to settings, here's how I'm going to access the quiz feature. If I click on settings, then I can go over here to this 3rd tab that says quizzes. And under quizzes then, if I toggle this button over, which I already have, it makes this into a quiz. There's some other features here you can look through as well. I'm going to leave it on later after manual review for when to release grade, and I'll show you that in a second. And then you can also have the respondent see any of the missed questions right away if you want them to do that. So I'll go ahead and click save here and then show you what this looks like in the questions. So Shannon already showed you how to create questions, but if I go to one of these questions and click on it, you'll see once the quizzes feature is turned on, you have this option of an answer key. So if I click on the answer key, I can go through and I can assign it a different point value. I can give some answer feedback, either for a right or a wrong answer. I could say try again, or think about, make sure that you have a common denominator before you add or subtract, whatever it might be. I could give some feedback there.
Can you click on that again real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. That's
One thing too, if you see down here, there's some
yeah.
links or videos. So if he had a video to support, if they got an incorrect answer, he could throw that in there as well.
Very good. So they could do that and then get some support and try it again. You can also choose the correct answer. And here's a nice thing: if more than one answer is correct, and you want the students to be sure to choose more than one, that's kind of a standardized testing type thing. You can have multiple correct answers as well, but you just choose which one it is, and then when I click done, I'm back to the editing screen where I can edit the document as I'm going along. So I could just go through each question. You can see I have another multiple choice question. With the answer, I could change the point value by clicking on answer key. But here's an open-ended question at the end here, and if I click on this one, you'll see under the answer key, Google isn't quite to the point where it can grade an open-ended question. That would be super crazy, and maybe someday we'll get there. But under the answer feedback, since it doesn't know the right or wrong answer, the feedback only exists just in general. It's not saying whether it's right or wrong. So anyways, just to show you that piece. So once you have your quiz, your exit slip, whatever it is, ready to go, again, just like Shannon said, to share it out, you're going to click the send button up here. And once you click the send button, that middle link here is for the web link. And I am going to then click shorten URL, and then it would be this URL that I would share out with my students. And this is something I would probably put into the LMS, or however I get my students access to websites. It's just creating a link that you then give to them so that they're able to take the quiz. Okay? So I will go ahead and hit copy there, and then I'm going to X out of it. So once you've shared that out with your students, I kind of think of this in 3 steps, right? You've got the create, which we already showed you how to create the quiz. We've shared it out. Now it's the grading portion. So the grading portion, I'm going to go to the responses tab, and I've taken my little assessment a couple times just as a trial, and you can see just some data that accumulates here. And the nice thing is you can look at this data in a variety of ways. So you can either look at a summary of it, as I am doing now, or I can look at it by question. So I can choose which of the questions I want to look at and see what all the students responded, or I can look at it as an individual student. So 3 different ways to look at it, which makes it really nice. And then if I go back to the question, speaking of the open-ended portion of it, I can go to question number 3, which was my open-ended question, and then I can go through and just kind of grade those all at once and assign the point value, whether or not they got it correct or partial credit or whatever it might end up being. So that's how you then are able to grade the test. And then, like Shannon said, if you're a spreadsheet geek like I am and you want to see the responses in a different way, if you click on this, it will actually open up a spreadsheet where it gives you the student's name, it puts in the score, and then each of the individual questions. So this is a great way to kind of get some data in a real nice, meaningful way there. Shannon, anything else on the quizzes part that you would add that I might have missed?
No, just this is a really great tool in the classroom that you can use, as a station if you want people to self-check.
Yeah.
That's a great way to set that up, that formative assessment for kids to look at. And then you can also choose to release did you say this, release the answers later?
Yeah.
So if they do it, if you don't want it to be self-checking right away, they could get that after everybody's submitted. So there's a lot of ways to kind of use this to ease the burden on the teacher of having to, I think back to sitting on the couch at night, flipping through all my stacks of papers.
Right.
That this is something I wouldn't have to do. Even the format or the constructed response, I can just have my computer out and type a response to
all right
students
there.
and then
Good.
send it back to them. So
Okay. So
time saver.
next thing you're going to show us is the choose your own adventure piece, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Answers
so,
later.
Yeah.
So if they do it, if you don't want it to be self-checking right away, they could get that after everybody's submitted. So there's a lot of ways to kind of use this to ease the burden on the teacher of having to, I think back to sitting on the couch at night, flipping through all my stacks of papers,
Right.
that this is something I wouldn't have to do. Even the format or the constructed response, I can just have my computer out and type a response to
All right
students
there.
and then
Good.
send it back to them. So
Okay. So
Time
next,
saver.
next thing you're going to show us is the choose your own adventure piece, which I think is really cool.
yeah, answers later.
Yeah.
So what they do, if you don't want it to be self-checking right away, they could get that after everybody's submitted. So there's a lot of ways to kind of use this to ease the burden on the teacher of having to, I think back to sitting on the couch at night, flipping through all my stacks of papers.
Right.
This is something I wouldn't have to do. Even the format or the constructed response, I can just have my computer out and type a response to students and then send it back to them. So
Okay. So
Time
next,
saver.
next thing you're going to show us is the choose your own adventure piece, which I think is really cool.
yeah, answers later.
Yeah.
So what they do, if you don't want it to be self-checking right away, they could get that after everybody's submitted. So there's a lot of ways to kind of use this to ease the burden on the teacher of having to, I think back to sitting on the couch at night, flipping through all my stacks of papers.
Right.
This is something I wouldn't have to do. Even the format or the constructed response, I can just have my computer out and type a response to students and then send it back to them. So
Okay. So
Time
next,
saver.
next thing you're going to show us is the choose your own adventure piece, which I think is really cool.
yeah, answers later.
Yeah.
So what they do, if you don't want it to be self-checking right away, they could get that after everybody's submitted. So there's a lot of ways to kind of use this to ease the burden on the teacher of having to, I think back to sitting on the couch at night, flipping through all my stacks of papers. This is something I wouldn't have to do. Even the format or the constructed response.
Okay.
Maybe just kill your audio, Shannon.
Okay, I just cut my audio to see if that helps. I turned off the. Okay.
Yep.
Better?
Sorry about that.
Okay, we'll go back. So this choose your own adventure story, when the students choose the incorrect answer, it takes them to a video from Khan Academy that they can watch the lesson on how to find that perimeter, and then they can choose a answer based on what they heard in the video to go back and try again. So what I did is I just built on the concept of students having to find the perimeter, having to find the area, and then at the end of this PBT, what it asks students to do is to draw their own map and figure out a problem so that they can reach that PBT example. So how I did that is I started with, and it seems like a lot of work, and it did take me some time, but I will say the hardest part was planning out how I wanted this to look for students. So I started with this kind of map to map out, if they chose this answer, where would they go? So this kind of mind map of how to solve it. And then once I had that, when I went to my Google form, it wasn't too difficult. So I uploaded my question, and then how I got it to branch out, if you notice these two kind of plus signs, once you are done with a question, you can click add a new section. So when you click add a new section, you title it, and then based on when you add a response, you can tell what section you want kids to go to based on what they answer. So if you just want them to continue the next section, you leave it there. So it kind of branches out that way.
Yeah.
So it's based on sections. It's based on choosing where kids go. What I really like about this is at the end, you wouldn't have to necessarily grade the whole thing, because I'm not too interested in what they did leading up to the final PBT, but their final question, like I said, is proving to me that they understand it by the application of uploading a picture of your own pirate home, and then it gives them specifications of they have to have an 8-sided polygon, a perimeter of 50 or greater. So they use all the skills they learned in the Choose Your Own Adventure to get to the PBT example. So we're gonna, if you happen to teach 3rd grade Unit 9 PBT 1,
There you
is gonna
go.
be on our technology resource page for you. So you've kind of got a
Freebie.
for you there. So
Very nice.
go ahead, and that's kind of a quick overview of Choose Your Own Adventure. Matt, you're gonna go with my maps, and we're kind of
Sure.
talking. So
Flying along
Yeah.
here. So this next one is something that I saw at a conference that I just thought was really cool. And I've got a couple ideas I'll share with you at the end of how this might be applicable. But you might see in the chat, I just shared a link. If you want to go there, it is bit.ly SB 2020 FWCS. So SB 2020 FWCS. You can see that link over there in the chat. Go ahead and grab that, and that goes to a form that I'd like you to just fill out real quick. It's real short, just ask for your name, and then where you're planning to go for spring break, and then what you're looking forward to the most. So once you see that up there,
I see the link. Where's
did the link not come through in the chat? Steve's telling me.
I'm on your desk. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, if they're in the chat, they should see it, because I did.
Okay.
It is right there though. Bit.ly SB 2020. So, anyways, once you go to that and fill that out, I'll wait till there's a few responses there. I'll refresh my screen and see, and then I'll kind of show you that next part of it. What this is going to do is it's going to take data from the survey that you did that goes into Google Forms, and then there's a way to use My Maps. And Shannon, how would you explain what My Maps is?
My Maps is just sort of a visual journey of where you want to travel over time. So it kind of plots different points.
Yeah.
So if you're studying a battle or something in history, you can plot different areas along with what happened on them, kind of tracking a journal.
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of put you on the
Put me
spot.
on the spot.
I
This was
know.
your section.
Right,
but,
exactly. And now I remembered, I wrote down what Google says about it is that they keep track of places that matter to you. So people use this mainly to be able to kind of track maybe places that they care about. It's My Maps is kind of what it's all about. So anyways, I think I got a few responses in there. If you haven't done one yet and you're just finishing up, go ahead and submit that. But over here, again, if I click on responses, you'll see, oh good, I got Shannon Quigley did all 3 of them. Wonderful. So I don't have a whole lot of participation out there. That's okay. I can still show you how this works then, because I think this is really cool. So if I go to the spreadsheet, then you can see the different people who have responded there. Shannon, Harriet, and Vincent. Thank you to Shannon and her family for...
We're all going different places.
Oh man, that's going to create problems, I think. But let me then go to My Maps. So if you just do a Google search for My Maps, or I think it's mymaps.google.com, it will take you to this site again where you can kind of put in different things the places that are important to you. So if you start by saying create a new My Map, then it will bring up the United States here. And then what I can do is go to this import button. So if I click on import, and then I say I want to choose something from my Google Drive, I can find this spreadsheet that I've recently opened, and I can grab data from there. So I'm going to select that, and I'm importing this into my slides. It's asking me, which of the fields do you want to pull from? I don't want to pull from my name. I want to say where you're going for spring break. So I'm going to check that box, hit continue, and then it's going to say pick a column to use as the title for the place mark, such as name, location, or person. So then I can put your name in there and click finish. And then give it a second to populate. It'll load up, and everybody who has responded, then I have a little marker for each of them. So you can see Shannon and her family. If I hover over this, this says that it is Shannon. And then if I click on here, and then it will say, what are you looking forward to? And it gives the information that she has. So imagine doing this with your class, just as maybe just a fun activity if you did the spring break and got to see where all the kids are possibly going. But some application things that I could think of, again, like in social studies, Shannon mentioned, of doing battles of a war to see different locations. Maybe each student is responsible for, or a group of students, for researching battles, and then they're inputting the information into a form and then loading it into My Maps. Maybe you're doing a state or country study as well. It's a great way to kind of get all of that information into one place. Did you have an idea?
I can think one of the books I used to read with my class was Bud Not Buddy, and it was about a boy who traveled. So if you're doing a read aloud like that, you could plot the character's travels and what he did at each of those locations to kind of make your read aloud interactive, and also a recap of the story when it's done.
Great, love it. So anyways, I think that's just a really cool thing that you're able to use in My Maps, and kind of a way to take data and then import it into a map to kind of see it in a new, meaningful way. So.
Okay, we're kind of getting into our quick share time. So we
Quick
are
share.
going to just share with you just like a minute idea that you can just kind of run with. So we're going to start with Matt. He's going to do our first quick share.
I am. Oh yes, I am.
And we've got sound effects.
We do have sound effects. You want to hear my sound
Yep.
effects for our quick share?
Okay, you hear the pew pews, okay.
Pew pews. Here we go. So the first one is one of my favorite. First of all, if you didn't catch this earlier, to create a new form, if you just type in forms.new, it will actually take you to Google Forms and the very beginning of one here. So I'm just going to type in practice for this one. And it's always a good idea, this is just kind of a quick tip, to put in name for your first one. Even though it does take the student's name, for whatever reason, if you're sharing out a form and you want to know who it is, it's probably a good idea to have name as your first category. But let's say that I wanted to type in, what is your t-shirt size? as soon as I type that in, watch how it knew to suggest extra small, small, medium, so on and so forth. So I can just click add all right there, and it gives those automatically for me. So there's lots of these cool little things. I just like the t-shirt one that Google has embedded in. So if you just ask a question, a lot of times it'll give you a suggestion for what some of those answers might be. You can use them or ignore them. But that's tip number 1. Are you ready for our next one, Shannon?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, here we come. Okay, so next one is that when I've got my Google Forms up here is to think beyond yourself. So not only can you create Google Forms, but your students can as well. So if they're doing a math unit where they have to collect data and create graphs, this would be a great way for students to create their form. They can create it. They can share the link somehow, maybe in a discussion board for their classmates to fill out. You can also do, a game. People can leave their computers up and students come around and fill out the form. But right away, they'll have instant data that they can use to analyze and just kind of have fun with creating different charts and graphs. So just thinking beyond what you can use it for, students can create forms and share them out as well.
Love it.
Okay, back to Matt.
You're not going to pew pew?
Pew pew.
Okay. There it is.
Okay.
All right, the next one we have is one that I really like. We found this on Twitter, and if I go to this right here on my screen, you will see this is a folder that we can share out with you, and we'll be sure to do that, that has a dozen or so. Are you on my screen, Steve? Okay, so this has a dozen or so just templates here for formative assessments. So these are ones that you can see. There's like a summary one, a KWLA chart, the background knowledge, free write. So you see a whole bunch of these that have already been created for you. You could take them, make your own copy of them, and modify them as needed. But instead of starting from scratch, this is a great way using some templates here, and we'll again share this folder with you so you can have access to it as well.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Okay. All right. This is my favorite one too of this quick share, and this is a student observational note form. So what I did at the beginning of the year is I just create a form with all of the students in my classroom's name and the date at the top. So every time, I'm going to put this in preview mode. So if I have a time where I'm doing student observations, student writing conferences, small group reading, anything that I would take a note on a student for, instead of having my Post-its or my folders open for the students, I can just go in here, select the date, and then any note that I have about the student, working on our controlled words. Okay, so and those are spelled wrong here. Okay, so I just have my notes here about the students. As soon as I submit the form, I can then, I'm going to go back to my teacher view. Once I've submitted the form, I can go to my response tab, and then when I hit my spreadsheet, each day that I've made notes about the student is going to populate. So as long as I go back to that form as a student and keep track and submit them each day, it's going to log that for me. So now think of how great this will be when at the end of the week you want to plan for the
Love
next
that.
week. You've got all
Yeah.
your observational notes. You want to share something with parents, interventionists, special ed teachers. It's all right there
Sure
for you.
beats that piece of paper I used to have on a clipboard that I seem
Yeah.
to lose way more often, or
Yep, so
spilled
that's my
coffee on it.
favorite
Yeah.
kind of idea for using this quickly.
Love
Okay.
it.
Pew pew.
Okay, I like your sound effects way better.
Yep.
So back to my form here that I had with the t-shirt size on it. Again, this might be a way, Shannon I think mentioned this earlier, but just again to think about like the flip model of being able to provide students a video to watch ahead of time. So if I have maybe your t-shirt size here, I want to embed a video or an image. I can put a video in here to be able to have my kids watch something and then answer a question. So that's a great way to kind of do that flip model right within Forms, where you have them watch ahead of time and then they can take the quiz, so that you're kind of doing that teaching on the front end of it, and students can see it at their own timing, their own pace as well.
Yep.
So last one, pew pew, back to you, Shannon.
Okay, the last one is on Google Forms, thinking about how students can submit answers. So one of the things that is great when you have this answer button, now if I go to multiple choice, instead I can choose that they can upload a file. And so when I ask students to do a file upload, I can choose what type of file I want them to have. So maybe I want images, so I'm going to say for a science lab here. So if I have, they want to make a hypothesis, then they need to show me the steps of their procedure, then they need to show me their results, and what they're doing, something where they're reacting with chemicals. They can't document that in words. They could take a picture with an iPad, their phone, their camera on their computer, and then upload a picture of that file. So now I've got documentation of a student's work that's not just typed. It's actually, maybe they were solving a math problem, but so the picture upload is huge. Okay?
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, that does it for our quick share. That really does it for just about everything. Thank you for joining us today. I do want to take a look at the chat. Steve, can you maybe pull that up for us? Do we have any questions out there from our
One
large
question we
audience? Yes.
When we go to Power School Gradebook, which we're hoping will be next year,
Yep.
will the scores from Google Forms quizzes transfer easily?
Great question, and that's something I think we're just going to have to experiment with. I'm not 100% sure how that integration will work, if they will be able to be imported directly into Power School Gradebook or not, but that's something definitely to check out. Great question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So even if it's not, that spreadsheet is super helpful that you could even copy and paste into a grade book if you had that, or if they have an export feature. We haven't really explored it in depth yet, but hopefully we'll have more answers for you coming soon.
Yep.
Just a reminder as we wrap up, the technology resource page is always available for you to find more information. This is where we're going to post all of the content that we shared with you today. So examples of the forms, that choose your own adventure, a copy of our kind of run through. So if you have any links to click on, we will have that available for you. And at the very bottom of the technology resource page is that integrated live page. That's what it's titled. That's where we put all of our videos. We'll have a quick survey if you wouldn't mind taking it. We'll post all of these tomorrow for you to take a look at, and that survey is really helpful for us as we move forward to know what you want from these sessions.
Yep.
We do have them kind of planned out for the rest of the year, but we're able to be flexible, or if you need more support in Google Forms, you could put that on there as well.
Yeah, and let us know what timing works best, because I know some of you are probably not watching this live, you're watching it recorded. 4 o'clock, we try to find a time that maybe works for the most people in our district. Obviously the high school folks are still in session, so they can't really join us till later. But we've even discussed doing these in the evenings, or doing some sort of video, chat, after school hours when everybody would be home. So we're open to whatever suggestions you might have. We'd love to have a larger live audience that can be a little bit more interactive and participate. So please let us know.
So please, if you know some colleagues that are interested in learning more about these kinds of tools, please share that we're doing these integrated lives with them if you're tuning in. The best place to find current information about what we're doing on the daily is at our Twitter handle, which is at FWCS integratED. Please follow us, and then we'll be able to share out content with you in real time. You can also follow us personally. You can follow me at Quigley's Class, and I'll be happy to follow you back so we can learn from each other.
And my Twitter handle is at MattTechEd, MattEched. And then we've got to give props to our producer extraordinaire, Steve Armstrong, is at Soundstrong.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next month, where we are going to be talking about 3D printing with Rachel Dickerhoof and Rick Herber.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining us. See you soon.
Yep.